Stefon Diggs lost more than just the Super Bowl. So he allegedly lost his woman, Cardi B.
Y'all, something just went very wrong behind the scenes, and the internet is only seeing half of it. Because what started as a power couple moment quickly spiraled into a situation nobody expected, not after the Super Bowl, not after the public support, and definitely not this fast. 1 minute, everything looked solid between Cardi B and Stefon Diggs. The next, silence then follows, and a timeline that doesn't add up. Then came the moment that changed everything. Reports started surfacing that Diggs didn't just stay quiet. He allegedly pulled up, unannounced, to Cardi's show. Not as a guest, not as support, but as someone ready to confront something serious. And what happened backstage? That's where things turned dark. Because according to what's being whispered online, it didn't end in a conversation. It ended in tension, security stepping in, and someone being escorted out. Now here's where it gets even messier. A cryptic message suddenly appears. Fake love, toxic energy. Words that don't sound random, they sound personal. But no one can confirm if it even came from him. Real or fake? That's the question. And while fans try to piece together the timeline, different cities, different dates, different stories, nothing lines up clean, which only makes this feel more calculated or more chaotic. So, now the real question is, did Cardi B finally snap and cut him off for good, or are we watching a much bigger story unravel in real time? Because whatever this is, it's not over.
I think that Cardi B and Stefon Diggs would have ever worked out because of his ego. Very point blank. He's not the man that can date somebody who is bigger than him. If you take away all the other messy factors, the fact that she's still married and just had a baby with her husband, you take away the fact that he's had 3 or 4 other kids and he has 5 baby mothers, you take away all of that, they still will not have been a good match, period. Stefon Diggs is definitely the football player who thinks that he can do no wrong and that it's everybody else's fault if, the game doesn't go right. The way he left the Buffalo Bills was not very well received. Even his brother is the same way. His brother has been kicked off of 3 NFL teams in this season alone. They're very egotistical men, and men who have multiple baby mothers, which tells you their egos are inflated. I definitely think he saw an opportunity in Cardi B because he is branching into different avenues outside of football, like the fashion industry, and he just dropped a furniture line. I could bet you all the men who are fans of Stefon Diggs are not checking for his furniture line, his home decor line. They're not checking for it. But if he has a woman who has a large, female fan base, they might support it just, off of association. So he needed somebody who had it.
Y'all, the timeline doesn't just look messy, it looks like something is being deliberately hidden. Because when you really start breaking this down piece by piece, nothing about the situation between Cardi B and Stefon Diggs feels random anymore. It feels layered, calculated, and way more serious than what's being shown on the surface. It all seems to trace back to one moment, the Super Bowl. That was supposed to be a high point, a celebration. Cardi reportedly went all out, money spent, energy invested, showing up publicly in full support. From the outside, it looked like loyalty, like she was standing 10 toes behind him during one of the biggest moments of his career. But then everything flipped. The loss hit. And almost immediately after, the energy shifted in a way people couldn't ignore. No big statements. No dramatic posts. Just silence, followed by something louder than words, unfollows. Both of them. At first, people tried to brush it off. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe it was temporary. But in celebrity culture, that kind of move, it rarely happens without a reason. And once fans noticed it, the speculation started moving fast. Then came the whispers. Not just about a breakup, but about what might have caused it.
I genuinely feel bad for Stefon Diggs because not only did he lose the Super Bowl, but he also lost Cardi B. Because after he lost the Super Bowl, Cardi B unfollowed him on Insta, and so did Stefon Diggs with Cardi B. So people are wondering if they broke up, and it looks like they did. I mean, the whole internet is clowning Diggs. He had 3 catches for 37 yards. And on top of that, he lost Cardi B. And I know this man Offset is so happy seeing this happen because we all know he was preying on Cardi B's downfall. Nah, but this is crazy though because Cardi B apparently spent $1.2 million her own money during the Super Bowl to celebrate Stefon Diggs. She invited over 100 friends and family from both sides to celebrate Stefon Diggs going to the Super Bowl just for him to lose. I'm pretty sure Stefon Diggs is going to court. I don't know if that had something to do with the breakup. Now the whole situation is crazy, bro. They broke up and they have a kid together.
Because behind the scenes, there were already rumors floating about who was present at that Super Bowl, about unexpected appearances, about certain individuals showing up where they weren't expected to be. And suddenly, a narrative started forming. One that suggested Cardi may have seen something or found something out that changed everything. And if that's true, that would explain what happened next. Because instead of things cooling down quietly, they escalated. Fast. Reports began circulating that Diggs didn't stay in the background. He allegedly made a move that no one saw coming, pulling up to Cardi's show. Not planned, not announced, just showing up. Now think about that. A live show, a packed arena, cameras everywhere. That's not the kind of place you choose for a calm, private conversation, especially if the topic is serious. Especially if emotions are already high. Which is why what reportedly happened backstage is raising so many questions. Because according to multiple accounts floating online, this wasn't a simple talk. It turned tense, voices raised, energy shifting, and then security stepping in. And just like that, he was escorted out. No official footage, no direct confirmation, just reports, and a growing number of people saying the same thing in different ways. But here's where it gets even darker. Because not long after that alleged incident, a message appears online. A message that feels too specific to ignore. Talking about fake love, toxic energy being done. It reads like a reaction, like someone felt betrayed. But again, no confirmation, no verification. Just a screenshot moving across the internet, gaining traction, feeding the narrative. And that's when the situation stopped being just messy and started becoming confusing. Because now the timeline isn't lining up clean. Different locations are being mentioned, different dates. Some people are pointing to February. Others are saying March. Some are convinced it happened in Las Vegas. Others are tying it to Kansas City. 2 different shows. 2 different timelines. One story that refuses to stay consistent. And when details start clashing like that, it forces a bigger question. Is this story being mixed up accidentally? Or is something being blurred on purpose? Because right now, all we have are fragments. A public fallout that wasn't explained, a confrontation that wasn't confirmed, a message that may or may not be real, and 2 people who've chosen to stay completely silent while the internet tries to connect dots. But silence like this doesn't shut things down. It makes people look closer. And the deeper you look into this situation, the less simple it becomes.
Yeah, I was saying that, but I'm not gonna do it.
What were you gonna do?
Like, I was just gonna take a little bit of butt out, but I don't have time for that. You know what? I feel really comfortable, like, where I'm at right now, like, with my body and everything.
Yes.
I do have a whole bunch of cellulites because, like, I don't know if it's the age or I don't know if it's the fact that I got, like, 4 kids. I don't know
Girl,
what it is, but I feel really good.
Your waist is the size of my arm. Yeah, you're tiny. I don't even want to hear it.
Yeah, but you know what? It looks so perfect.
It does.
It does, but it's not. But it's okay. I'm loving my imperfections and everything, and I just feel really comfortable. I feel really.
And just when it seemed like the story couldn't get any more tangled, it did. Because now, the conversation isn't just about what happened. It's about what doesn't make sense. After that alleged confrontation, after the unfollows, after the cryptic message, something strange started happening. Not louder, but quieter. And that silence? It didn't calm anything down. It made everything feel more controlled. Because while the internet was exploding with theories, both Cardi B and Stefon Diggs stayed almost completely still. No direct denials. No confirmations. No attempt to shut anything down. And that's where things start to feel intentional. Because when something isn't addressed at all, it creates space. Space for assumptions. Space for patterns. Space for people to start noticing the small details that don't usually get attention, like the posts. Because even though they weren't speaking on each other directly, both of them were still active. Subtle uploads, controlled appearances, carefully worded moments that didn't say much, but didn't say nothing either. And then came the detail that shifted the tone again, their child. Because despite everything, both sides continued posting content connected to their child. Moments that suggest communication is still happening, at least on some level. And that's where the narrative splits in 2 completely different directions. One side believes this means the connection is still alive, that maybe behind closed doors, things aren't as broken as they look. That maybe the tension is temporary. That maybe this is just another phase. But the other side, they see it differently.
Stefon Diggs and Cardi B broke up mid-Super Bowl. Context, no one's having a worse 24 hours than Stefon Diggs is. The Patriots got thrown out by the Seahawks, just dominated on the offensive side of the ball. Cardi B, who came to support him, left at halftime and unfollowed him on Instagram after the Super Bowl. Obviously, that's a terrible sign. Some people think it's because Stefon Diggs' baby mama was there with front row tickets at the Super Bowl while Cardi B was there. She found out and she's like, yeah, screw this. And all that enough would be bad on its own, but Stefon Diggs actually got arrested today after the Super Bowl because of the domestic violence incident he had with one of his chefs. So yeah, losing the Super Bowl, getting broken up with, and getting arrested all in 24 hours, that's brutal. It's confirmed that he will be coming back to the Patriots next year, but we'll see if there's any kind of suspension involved with that domestic violence incident. He's known for having drama. Cardi B has been off and on with him, just like she was off and on set for a really long time. But for Cardi B to leave him during the biggest game of his life, yeah, that relationship is over. Another thing, apparently they both spent $1 million for an after party and neither of them went to it because they had broke up. I know the rich.
They see 2 people who are no longer together, but are forced to stay connected. Communication without closeness. Presence without partnership. And when you look at it from that angle, the situation feels even colder. because now it's not about love anymore. It's about distance. Then another layer gets added. A name starts circulating. Not loudly, but enough to be noticed. People begin bringing up outside connections, possible influences, individuals who may or may not be part of what caused everything to shift in the first place. Nothing confirmed, but enough to keep the speculation alive. And just as that starts building, attention shifts again. This time to family. Because when Cardi's sister suddenly appears at a tour stop, after not being visibly present before, it doesn't go unnoticed. At first glance, it looks like support, like a normal, expected moment. But the timing? That's what people are questioning. Because it didn't just happen randomly. It happened right as the rumors were peaking. Right as the story was gaining traction. And almost immediately, people start asking, was this just support? Or was this positioning?
Stefon Diggs lost more than just the Super Bowl. So he allegedly lost his woman, Cardi B. Now, y'all, we had just talked about how happy Cardi was that they were going to the Super Bowl.
This was so packed and jumping, but you know what? Us Pat fans, we stuck together and we stuck it out and we won. We all we got, we all we need. Like Mr. Diggs said, L.
But when the Super Bowl actually came, Cardi didn't have much to say anymore. So a reporter asked her if she had any advice, but she kept it surprisingly short.
Message for Stefon before the game. One inspired message for him.
Good luck.
Cardi said good luck and walked away. Good luck. Is that some kind of sick foreplay that only Cardi and Stefon would understand? I'm like, what happened? What happened to, like Mr. Diggs said, we all we got, we all we need. Ow. What, like, where? It's only been 3 business days, y'all. Oh my gosh. Well, I would be like that too because Stefon's other baby mama was also at the Super Bowl. She was also there. And then fans noticed the ultimate side of a breakup. They
Interview 1649, 1748. Because in situations like this, every appearance starts to feel strategic. Every movement gets analyzed. And when there's already tension in the air, even normal moments start to look different. But while all of this is unfolding, something else is quietly happening in the background. The timeline is still not making sense. Because now, there are claims placing Diggs in completely different locations around the same time. Football-related appearances, public events, moments that seem to conflict with the idea that he was present at that alleged concert confrontation. And if that's true, then one of these stories is inaccurate, which brings everything back to the same uncomfortable question. What actually happened? Because right now, we're looking at a situation built on fragments. A relationship that appears broken, but not clearly ended. An incident that sounds intense, but isn't confirmed, a message that feels personal, but might not be real, and a timeline that refuses to stay consistent no matter how many times it's reviewed. And the deeper this goes, the more it starts to feel like we're not getting the full picture. Because if this was simple, it would have already been explained. If this was nothing, it would have already been denied. But instead, we're getting silence, careful movements, and just enough activity to keep people watching without ever giving them answers. And that kind of pattern, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens when something bigger is sitting just beneath the surface, waiting. Because whatever really went down between Cardi B and Stefon Diggs, it's not finished. Not even close. And now we reach the point where the story stops being about what happened and starts becoming about what's being kept out of view. Because by now, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Every time the narrative gets close to something concrete, it shifts. A new detail appears. A different timeline surfaces. Another angle gets introduced. And just like that, clarity disappears again. That's not normal. That's controlled confusion. Because if you step back and look at everything surrounding Cardi B and Stefon Diggs right now, it doesn't feel like a single story. It feels like multiple versions of the same story, all competing at once. One version says it ended after the Super Bowl. Clean break. Emotional fallout. Unfollows and silence. Another version says it didn't end at all, that there's still communication, still subtle interaction, still something happening behind the scenes that the public isn't meant to fully see. And then there's the version that changes everything. The one that centers around that alleged confrontation. Because if that moment actually happened the way it's being described, then this isn't just a breakup story anymore. It's escalation. It's conflict reaching a point where it couldn't stay private. And that raises a much heavier question. What pushed it there? Because people don't just show up unannounced in a high-profile setting unless something unresolved is already boiling underneath. And if that's the case, then whatever happened before that moment must have been serious enough to break whatever boundaries were left. But again, no confirmation, no footage, no direct acknowledgement, just a story that refuses to disappear. And that's what makes this different. Because most rumors fade when there's nothing holding them up. This one, it keeps evolving. New angles keep surfacing. New interpretations keep spreading. And every time people think they've figured it out, something else comes in and disrupts the entire narrative again. Even the smallest details are being pulled apart. The tone of Cardi's performances, the way certain comments are delivered on stage, the energy shifts people think they're noticing. Because now, it's not just about obvious actions anymore. It's about reading between the lines. And when audiences start doing that, it means the silence has lasted too long. Because silence creates space. And space creates stories. Some real, some not. But all of them filling in the gaps left behind. And in this case, those gaps are everywhere. Which brings us to the part no one can ignore anymore. The unpredictability. Because right now, this situation could go in any direction. It could quietly disappear with no explanation, no closure, no final statement. Just another unresolved story buried under the next headline. Or it could break wide open. A confirmation, a denial, a piece of evidence that suddenly makes everything make sense. But until that happens, we're stuck in the middle, watching, analyzing, waiting for something that may or may not come. And that's exactly what keeps people locked in. Because uncertainty, that's what holds attention the longest. And right now, this entire situation is built on it. So whether this was a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control, or something much deeper that hasn't been exposed yet, one thing is undeniable. This isn't over. Because stories like this, the ones filled with silence, contradictions, and unanswered questions, they don't just end quietly. They build, they shift, and eventually, they reveal more than they were ever supposed to. The only question is, when? And this is exactly where everything stops being entertainment and starts feeling like something much bigger is about to break. Because let's be honest, this situation isn't cooling down, it's building pressure. The silence, the mixed timelines, the unanswered questions, that's not closure. That's tension stacking up. And when tension stacks up like this, it doesn't just disappear, it explodes. Right now, people are watching every move, every post, every appearance, waiting for that one slip, that one confirmation, that one moment where the truth finally cracks through all the noise. And the craziest part? It feels close. Because stories like this don't stay hidden forever. Something always leaks. Someone always talks. And when it does, it doesn't come out quietly. It hits all at once and changes the entire narrative overnight. What looks like speculation today could turn into confirmed reality tomorrow. And if even half of these claims connect, this won't just be messy. It'll be a full-blown public fallout. So now it comes down to you. Do you think this was just another overblown internet rumor that spiraled out of control? Or are we watching the early stages of something way deeper that hasn't fully surfaced yet? Because if there's more to this, and all signs are pointing that there is, you already know how this ends. Not with silence, not with confusion, but with something that forces everyone to pay attention. So stay locked in, don't look away, and make sure you're here when the next piece drops. Because this story, it's about to get a whole lot louder.